After I finished the Origin in 1859, I devoted the remainder of my, or a large portion of the remainder of my life to the study of plants. Particularly, I devoted several books to orchids. And why did I do that? Well, as you can see from several of the orchids that are here, they have very unique flowers that are much different than the normal flowers. They have some very unique adaptations. This is one of my favorite flowers. This is the Star of Bethlehem, native to Madagascar. And I want to illustrate a few points in terms of some of the major concepts in the Origin, like natural selection and the origin of species, using this plant. Now, for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, it was thought that all living organisms were specifically designed for, normally, oftentimes they thought they were specifically designed for the pleasure of man, when man was considered to be one of God's creations, and the plants and the animals were all designed to please man or something like that. I began to lose faith in that conclusion, and one of the reasons I did was because I studied things like this orchid. This orchid here has extremely long nectaries where a very sugary solution is located. The flower is white because the plant, normally plants like this are pollinated by creatures that fly around in the evening. So they can be seen very easily in the evening, and that's why this plant which was sent to me by my friend Dr. Hooker at the Kew Arboretum, sent me this plant. And this plant here, I could immediately say it has to be a plant that was pollinated in the evening. It has a little bit of a fragrant scent, which would attract creatures. I speculated that when I saw the size of the nectary, now the nectary, these orchid plants illustrate unbelievable adaptations and the beauty of and the power of small changes over immense periods of time to change and modify the structure of something. In this case, look at the size of the nectary on this orchid. The nectary is a modification. The nectary is a modification of the petal in the orchid. But this nectary here, when I studied fertilization in some of these other orchids, the fertilization pattern usually is the flower is used to attract bees or flies because it smells like a bee or a fly, or the structure of the flower can actually simulate the insect, and the male bees perhaps will try to copulate with it. In the process, they would carry pollen from plant to plant. But I speculated for this plant when I saw the length of the nectary, and I did some experiments to show that the sugary solution is only in the bottom inch of the nectary. That there must exist someplace a moth or a bird. Now, birds don't fly around in the evening that well, so I presume it was a moth. Would have to have a tongue that would approximate the length of the nectary. And how would that evolve over time? It couldn't have been created like this why would God create a moth that had a long tongue? It had to evolve very slowly over immense periods of time through accidental mutations that favored the pollination of this plant by a particular insect. And over time, the nectary got longer and the proboscis got longer until you had this enormous nectary, which could now be only pollinated by one particular insect. So now this would be very dependent on that insect. So if that insect went extinct, too bad for the plant. But in this case, it looks like the plants succeeded in this coevolutionary development, because the films have been taken of a moth that has a tongue that is about a foot, 10 to 12 inches long. So again, the plants all orchids, all plants, all creatures exhibit adaptations to their environment because they have evolved slowly, small changes that enhance their survival over immense periods of time. It's hard to imagine why an all-knowing, omnipotent God would do this. It makes much more sense to use to have evolution as the explanation for something like this than what had been believed for centuries. And I felt somewhat vindicated when the moth was found, but it again shows the power of evolution if it has time to occur.